It's a pleasure to be here today, and I know you're probably expecting me to just talk at you, but I want to start off with a social experiment and answer truthfully. I'm going to ask you to shut your eyes for this. Imagine a soldier going out to war and being confronted by the enemy. The enemy shoots at them, and this soldier collapses. They are taken to a field hospital, hoping to treat their gunshot wound. The doctors come out and rush this soldier into surgery. During this, the nurses are frantically running around the field hospital searching for blood. The nurses eventually find the blood, and the doctors treat the gunshot wound, and this soldier stabilizes. You can open your eyes now. Now go back to the beginning and imagine the soldier. Put your hand up if the soldier was male. Put your hand up if the doctors were male. And put your hand up if the nurses were female. Now, as anticipated, more hands went up than not. And I ask these questions because even in modern day society, we perceive certain roles for men and certain roles for women, even when the statistics don't match up. For example, in the NHS, over 47% of doctors are women, yet they don't get the same level of recognition. And the statistic I want to address today is 11.4% of all personnel in the British Armed Forces are female, yet we barely ever hear about them. In 1759, a 19-year-old called William Chandler joined the Navy and boarded HMS Sandwich. Now, during this time, the Royal Navy was engaged in the 7 Years' War, so William went off to battle. Now, during this time, he suffered a series of hardships, including suffering from a bout of rheumatic fever, causing him to end up in hospital. He was then assigned to the Royal Sovereign until the end of the war in 1763. Now, unfortunately, in 1771, rheumatism forced William to stop working and applied to the British Admiralty for a pension, which was granted. Now, you may be wondering why on earth I'm telling you this, but that is because, in fact, William Chandler's name was Mary Lacey, a woman born in Kent, and she is so significant because she was the first woman to pass an exam and receive a pension from the British Admiralty in 1771. Women have been in our militaries, albeit secretly, long before any of us were born. Yet some militaries have only started to treat them as equals recently. The first question in my research was, what's so special about the attributes of men that means they're better suited for military life? Dr. Lee in Melbourne researched into the SRY protein, found in the Y chromosome, therefore only in males, and the impact it had on their hormones and reactions. He found that it affected their reactions to stress. It was previously thought that it only affected early sex determination. However, it was found to affect both cardiovascular activity and neural function. Now, this is important because the more stressed we are, the more we react with habit. And in a military situation, this can be dangerous because the more we react with habit, the more we stick with what we know. So we don't go through all the potential options there could be. And therefore, having women on the ground may potentially lead to fewer accidents and prevent all accidents. Now, the next thing to mention is the difference in requirements. From the get-go, women are set different requirements than men. For example, these are the joining requirements for both males and females joining the Marine Corps in the USA. Now, as you can see, the women have to do only a third of the required pull-ups and have an extra minute and a half to run the same distance. Why is this? They have exactly the same job in combat. Now, the anatomical difference between males and females is significant, that is true. But does that mean that they should have different entrance requirements? Up here is a graph for the average skeletal muscle mass for both males and females for each 10-year age gap. Now again, there is the significance. But when in training, they are required to do exactly the same thing. There is no difference. So again, why the difference in requirements? Captain Greast, who was one of the first females to join Army Ranger School in the USA, commented on the fact that while she was there was no difference in requirements. But somehow, between then and now, they have introduced differences. Now, not only could this jeopardise a team, but it also reinforces the belief that women can't perform to the same standards as men. Captain Grease, whilst going through her training, said she was worried that she wouldn't be able to carry the same weight as the men. However, by the end, everyone, not just the females, was just doing the best that they could, whatever standard that was. Now, another thing to note is the benefit that women have on the ground. Now, women feel less threatened by women, so they're more likely to feel approachable when they're coming into contact with female soldiers. Now, Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations since 2017, commented on the benefit of having female personnel in operations. Now, having female peacekeepers in operations leads to a more credible protection response that meets the needs of all members of local communities. But also, having women in patrol units means they can better reach out to both men and women. And it also increases the inspection of women at checkpoints. Now, kind of attached to this, women can better prevent the access that enemies have to public places. For example, Boko Haram, a terrorist group in Nigeria, specifically recruit women because they're less likely to be examined at checkpoints and they have better access to public places. Therefore, having women on the ground has a direct benefit in terms of increased inspection of women and preventing fatal terrorist activities. Now, where are we now? What can we do? Currently, there are 20,000 servicewomen in the British Armed Forces, and they make over 13.8% of all the officers. Now, I believe this number should increase, and in due course, hopefully it will. But I want us to recognise the women that are currently in our armies and the benefit that they have on their teammates, but also the strengthening of our militaries. Thank you for listening.